If you want to go fast, this is the bike for you. Hello viewers, I'm David and this is my review of the Canyon Lux CF SLX 9.0. Now you might have seen my first look video on this a little while ago where I went to all the details on this bike, and I won't go over them again. Instead, I'll link to that video in the card above hopefully and down in the description. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the performance, the ride and handling, and whether you should buy this bike in 2020. So let's dive in. Everything about it screams speed. From the full carbon frame, the carbon wheels, the very firm, efficient suspension, and that geometry creates a bike that is astonishingly fast on all terrain. The low weight, 24.5 pounds without pedals, means it's really fast on the climbs. It's really fast on rolling terrain through single track. The handling is very responsive, it's very agile and very nimble, and it changes direction extremely quickly. It's a bike that requires 100% focus to get the most out of it, and if you do put a lot in, you get a lot out. This bike really rewards when you push hard on the pedals, when you throw into corners. It's just such a fast bike. So for cross-country racing, this is clearly a fast platform, but for trail riders wanting a fast, lightweight bike for just doing long rides in the countryside, like marathon racing as well, this bike is definitely a good choice. The geometry might not be the most progressive, and on more technical, very steep terrain, it does hold it back. It's a bit more nervous, a bit more skittish in very steep, hard corners, and you really have to pay a lot of attention to make sure you get down through those sections cleanly without having a crash or an incident. But on more flowing, faster single track where you're carving through the trees, that handling actually works extremely well and gives you plenty of confidence to put the bike where you want it, to change direction really quickly when you need it. For climbing, that long stem helps you keep your weight over the front wheel, so you can get up some very steep climbs very easy on this bike. You can lock out the suspension on a smoother climb as well, but for the most part, I left the suspension unlocked. It's so firm, you can just leave it unlocked to get the most out of the traction that the rear suspension delivers. It's been a long time since I've ridden a mountain bike with such a long stem and narrow handlebar, and it did take some getting used to. For more trail riding usage, I'd opt for a wider handlebar for a bit more control and hopefully slow down the handling in extreme situations. But on the flip side, the narrow handlebars are great for squeezing through narrow gaps. As you'd expect for a bike costing this sort of money, the components are well chosen and they delivered extremely good performance. I won't go into too much detail on the components because you might be looking at this bike but at a different price point, but it's worth just sharing some of my observations on the equipment. The first thing to talk about is the SRAM XX1 Eagle Group set, which is just flawless really. It's been out for a long time now and it still works extremely well. Got plenty of range for steep climbs and long descents. The brakes are very powerful. You've got that flat mount caliper on the back, but I didn't notice any difference in braking performance. The one thing I would change on the brakes would be an easier lever reach adjustment. You need a tiny Allen key and it's quite fiddly to get in there, and I'd rather have just a dial on the front so I can change it as I need when I'm out on a ride. So that's one thing I would change. The carbon Reynolds wheels add a lot of bling factor to the bike, which is no bad thing. They look really cool, but they're also pretty lightweight and they're very stiff. And they definitely contribute to the responsiveness of the bike as a whole and the way it just feels really alert and really agile and moves direction really quickly. They're a strong set of wheels as well. I've been running tyres at low pressures and I dinged the rim on a few rocks and roots, but they shrugged it all off. They're tubeless as well, and I've had no problem with tubeless tyres burping or losing pressure, so just a really solid, good set of wheels. For UK winter conditions, these Maxxis Aspen tyres aren't the best choice. When it's been drier, they do deliver good grip, but I did change the tyres on some muddier rides just to get a bit more bite when you're really slithering through the mud and dealing with slimy roots. But tyre choice is personal. It would be nice if manufacturers offered the option to change the tyres when you're buying a bike, or did a UK winter spec, because if you're buying a bike in the winter, you're going to change tyres straight away. But we're coming in the spring, summer now, so maybe it's not a bad thing. But I'd like to see a bit more flexibility or customization offered by manufacturers, especially like Canyon with a direct sales model, to let you just choose the tyres you need for your terrain and your conditions and riding style. I love the fact we're seeing dropper posts appearing on cross-country race bikes, and it might only be a short travel dropper post here, but it makes all the difference on a steep and technical descent. Just having a saddle out of the way gives you more room to maneuver, just gives you a bit more freedom, just makes all the difference, and just helps you get down descent where geometry does hold you back a little bit. So yeah, thumbs up to Canyon for speccing a dropper post on all bikes apart from the cheapest model. The RockShox suspension gave me no issues at all. The SID fork is stiff and lightweight, and you've got volume tokens in there so you can adjust how it performs for you. It's not quite as good as a Fox 32 Stepcaster in my opinion. It doesn't quite give up the same performance, and it's not quite as stiff, and it's also a bit heavier, but it's still a good fork. I've already talked about how the rear suspension is quite firm, but it's deluxe shock, it's easier to set up. It's made easier by the fact it's a long stroke. It's 55mm, which is quite long for a short travel bike, and it means very low air pressures. And I'm talking about 100 psi or so for my weight. So very low air pressures, easy to set it up, quite a wide bandwidth for getting the pressure right, and you've got easy sag indicator marks on the shock shaft so you can get it set up just right. And the rebound adjuster dial is quite tricky to get to, but it's a good range of adjustment from very low speed to very high speed damping, depending on how you like it. You can lock out the rear shock and fork from a remote lever on the handlebar, which is, you can take it or leave it really. I know cross-country racers do like a lockout lever, but personally, I found the suspension so firm that off-road I rarely used it, but when you do need to use it, it's there. The one thing I would definitely change from the bike if I was buying it would be the Italia SLR saddle. Now for a short race, a 1 hour race is fine, but for a longer ride, a longer trail ride, I found it just too firm and the shape didn't really suit me. So I would change that. But saddles are personal, you might get on with it fine, so that's one thing of note. I also like the fact we've got space with 2 bottle cages, so you can carry plenty of water, no hydration packs needed, even on a 100km trail ride, you've got plenty of water on the bike. There are some cool and odd details I want to point out on this Canyon Lux. A flat mount caliper is not something we're used to seeing on mountain bikes. It's more commonplace on road bikes where it was developed, but Canyon has used it to save weight on this bike and really shows the attention to detail on this bike. Another attention to detail is this. Hidden inside the axle is the lever for getting the wheel out of the frame. That is very neat, so no tools needed there. The one odd detail is the steering lock on the top tube, basically designed to stop the crown of the fork from slamming into the down tube at full steering lock. So it does limit how much you can turn the handlebars. It is a bit of a hindrance when you're manoeuvring the bike out of the house, the garage or the car, but it's just something worth bearing in mind. It's a bit like the Trek knock block system. It's not the prettiest either, it's a little bit ugly to have that on the top tube, but when you're riding you don't notice it and it doesn't present an issue when riding. So should you buy a Canyon Lux in 2020? Well, clearly if you like going fast and you want a great value for money package, then yes, there's a lot to recommend here. If you're put off by the longer, slacker geometry of more modern cross-country race bikes and you want something that's a bit more traditional with a geometry and a handlebar and a stem, then you'll get on just fine with this bike. It's a very fast, very responsive, very agile bike. It's not the most capable in very technical, steep terrain where the geometry does hold it back and the handlebar and stem don't give you the control that a wider handlebar, a shorter stem and a slacker geometry would give you. But for marathon riding, dealing with climbs and rolling single track and shorter descents, then the bike does work extremely well. You have to be switched on to get the most out of this bike. It's not a relaxing bike. The suspension isn't the comfiest. It doesn't smooth out all the bumps. So it is a very involving, very engaging ride. It's very clearly a bike designed for racing, for winning races, and for short track, 1 hour cross-country racing, this bike it's perfectly suited, I think. Value for money though, you can't knock it. Apart from the saddle, there's nothing I'll change in the bike, having the tyres for different trail conditions. But yeah, it's a very compelling package that a lot of people would enjoy. Now, I'd love to know what you think of this bike. Do you own it? Are you considering buying one for 2020? Or are you looking at other bikes in this category? So let me know down in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. If you did, hit that like button, give me a big thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe to my channel by hitting the red button down below. Loads more bike reviews coming up, so make sure you hang around so you don't miss those. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.